Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vestiges of History, where we tell of storied lives. My name is Dylan, and today we tell of the storied lives of a band of sisters, the 403rd Army Service Forces Band. As always, what are the vestiges to tell this story? Fortunately, we have a pile of excellent photography, including vintage puppy photos. These photos came from the collections of various band members, all veterans of the 403rd. There are dozens of stories in these pictures, and researching this Army band has been a decades-long project for me. Let's start pulling threads.
On every front, the men of America are carrying on our fight for freedom. And back of them is another army, a woman's army. The Woman's Army Corps, the WACs. Women from every walk of life, of every race, creed, and color. Women who have recognized their stake in the future of America. They carry no arms, and their work is far behind the fighting line. But for every WAC volunteer, another soldier is released for combat duty. Another weapon turned against the Axis.
In the early days of World War II, an unprepared Army command realized the need for music for maintaining morale and learning drill at the very new Women's Army Auxiliary Corps training centers, and 5 bands were organized for the 5 centers. The 403rd started out at the 5th WAC Training Center at Camp Ruston, Louisiana. The post was initially constructed as an internment camp for Japanese Americans. It was actually going to be used as a prisoner of war camp later in the war. They had to comply with a 30-day notice to vacate if German or Italian POWs were being shipped in. They were then assigned to the 3rd WAC Training Center at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Then, on 20 June 1943, their name was changed to the North Post Band, and later to the 403rd Army Band, and again redesignated as the 403rd Army Service Forces Band in late January of 1944. The ladies of the 403rd were also featured in the November 1943 issue of National Geographic at the arrival of the hospital ship Chateau Thierry, which had just returned from the Mediterranean with wounded troops. The band played a stand and deliver concert, playing music to welcome these fighting men home, as their war was over. On 17 January 1944, the band participated in a parade and award ceremony in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The band personnel changed during the following months, and the band's strength increased to 30 members. The band consisted of 1 flute, 8 clarinets, 3 saxophones, 6 trumpets or cornets, 3 French horns, 1 baritone horn, 3 trombones, 1 sousaphone, and 2 drummers. They played classical, patriotic standards like Gary Owen, Liverpool Hornpipe, and Dixie. Rehearsals were rigorous. Most days the ladies rehearsed once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Sometimes they'd play for the troops during the afternoon session. These women were professionals, and in many cases the best in their respective instruments. Many women floated in and out of the band during this early time, either going to other bands or transferring to different units within the Women's Army Corps, with different responsibilities. The dance band played big band standards like Blue Moon, Deep Purple, and Moonlight Serenade. Also notable was that the band played for the premiere of a new movie, Irving Berlin's This Is the Army, starring George Murphy, Joan Leslie, and a young Ronald Reagan. The 403rd ASF Band was assigned to Stark General Hospital on 21 March 1944 on temporary duty and became a separate organization. Effective 10 July of 1945, the permanent station of the 403rd was changed from Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia to Stark General Hospital, Charleston, South Carolina. Between March 1944 and September 1945, the 403rd provided what could only be the most extensive, dedicated, and imaginative hospital performances. Stark is where the band comes into its own and begins to branch out and do genuinely impactful work. Stark's hospital director saw the value the band could provide for wounded and injured men recovering in their wards. They played dances, concerts, ceremonies, and everything in between. The ladies then divided into smaller instrumental or vocal ensembles to serve the patients better. The band worked at a fever pitch as patients rotated in and out of Stark on an intense schedule, as Stark was a disembarkation hospital. Warrant Officer Florence Love, the director of the band, sent Assistant Director Ada Strauss to a month-long course at the Army Special Services and Morale School. Ada returned inspired. Ada formed Sergeant Strauss and her Hungry Five, choosing the most outgoing girls from the band, and created a musical comedy troupe with characters for each member, and costumes were made from the salvage warehouse found at Stark. Mary Hal Holland, who hailed from Texas, was dressed in a cowboy-esque costume made up of a interwar period khaki uniform, and she played the clarinet. There was Sad Sack, played by either Mary Simpson or Pearl England on trombone, in an empty feed sack. Tahiti on trumpet, in either a grass skirt or a French cloth skirt and blouse, played by either Grace Joachim or Louise Mulvaney. Susie on the sousaphone, played by Geraldine Scott, and the all-original Sweater Girl, played by Mary Davis, wearing a set of wool long johns and an army sweater on the soprano sax. These efforts were rewarded through the active participation of the patients in recovery, and morale was at an all-time high. Other shows that showcased a variety of talent and dedication were the Three Bells, a three-member singing troupe made up of Strauss, Compton, and Davis that would perform in concerts and ward shows. The Gay 90s Review was a much larger ensemble variety show with a range of music and comedy. It included 11 members from the 403rd, 3 from the post-WAC detachment, and 4 men. Acts would include the Cherry Sisters, played by Sergeant Frank Nugent and Private First Class Cy Weinblatt, the Four Larks from Stark, starring Sergeant Dorothy Heselton, Private First Class Mary Davis, Fiddlin' Around, featuring the comedic stylings of Sergeant Ada Strauss and her fiddle, You Want to See More, starring Sergeant Fred Papa and Corporal Libby Glover from the WAC detachment, The Two Marys, starring Corporal Mary Hicks and Private First Class Mary Davis, The Charleston Nightingale, played by Corporal Guy Procopio, and accompanist Miss Demeanor, played by Sergeant Ada Strauss. This show was so popular that the Army sent it on tour to the entire area command of the 4th Service Command, which included the Carolinas, Virginia, and West Virginia. While at Stark, the 403rd put on 61 ward shows, 78 dances, 6 Hungry Five shows, 6 stand and deliver concerts, 4 mess hall shows, 5 dinner shows, and 13 Gay 90s reviews. Now, with all this work, was there time for play? Of course. The ladies would use weekend passes to go into town just the same as their male counterparts. They also loved swimming, sunbathing, and playing with Starkey, the 403rd mascot. Starkey was a Cocker Spaniel Spitz mix that Florence Love brought over from Georgia. He was the goodest boy and only boy in the band. As the war wound down, band members began being discharged. Those that remained were sent to Fort Devens, Massachusetts at Level General Hospital. They arrived at the peak of autumn in 1945 by train, then by bus. They arrived at a massive 2-story building. The officer escorting them told them, "It's all yours, girls," and they had a nice day room to rehearse, innerspring mattresses, nice civilian-looking dressers, and even floor lamps. This was the first time in the war the ladies had received comfortable housing outside of a military barracks. The dance band took on the responsibilities of playing 3 dances and 3 ward tours per week, while the concert band performed at the local Red Cross and in the hospital auditorium. The 403rd was formally inactivated on 15 December 1945. The women were given a choice to separate from the service or to head to Fort Mason in San Francisco to join the 400th WAC Band. These ladies served at the San Francisco port of embarkation and performed for returning troops and hospital ships. It was reported that the band had its own yacht to ride out into the harbor to meet the ships. How is that for a floor show? Altogether, the ladies of the 403rd played 82 ward shows, 98 dances, 7 Hungry Five shows, 8 stand and deliver concerts, 4 mess hall shows, 4 MC concerts, 5 dinner shows, and 15 Gay 90s reviews, and entertained tens of thousands of servicemen returning from the war. When I think about the WAC and the women in the various service bands in World War II, these are just ordinary women, sisters, cousins, moms, and aunts. Most of these ladies went on to teach music and hold their time in the 4 and 3rd as the best time in their lives. These women, these badass musicians, were so much cooler than I could have imagined. They are something to aspire to. In 1944, Mary Davis, aka Sweater Girl, said,
"After the first time, it was all right. It never gets to be an old story, but we don't cry anymore. You see, it's odd, but playing for the boys is fun. They're so happy that you catch it too. Don't let anyone tell you a hospital full of wounded soldiers is a gloomy place. Their morale is so darned high, it keeps yours up."
For me, it's easy to imagine those brief moments of joyful distraction and peaceful respite that these women gave to these men who had their lives changed forever. When we think about veterans' contributions to their country during a war, there is a penchant for glorifying personal sacrifice in battle. Still, we should not overlook those that provide the music that heals. I want to recognize Dr. Jill Sullivan, who wrote the book, Bands of Sisters, about the U.S. women's military bands of World War II in all of the service branches. This book is invaluable to historians of this seldom seen segment of the American perspective of the war. I also want to thank Roberta Jaffer, daughter-in-law of Ada Strauss Jaffer, for sharing her research with me and allowing me into her home to digitize Ada's collection. Thank you for sharing your time with me today, and please share this video where you think it will do the most good. As always, you never know who will tell your story. Live a storied life. And if you're a descendant of one of these ladies, I dedicate this short documentary to them.
To bring you to you from the nearest corner saloon. They'll gurgle a ballroom ballad at the pop of a cork or the drop of a beer bottle. We give you those fascinating, scintillating, excruciating, two Marys singing "'Twas a cold winter's evening." Woo! "'Twas a cold winter's evening, the guests were all leaving, closing the bar, when he up and he said to the lady in red, 'Get out, you can't sleep where you are.' She wept a sad tear in her bucket of beer as she thought of the cold nights ahead, when a gentleman dapper stepped out of the clapper, and these are the words that he said. Her mother never told her the things a young girl should know about the ways of fancy men and how they come and go. Time has taken her view, life has dealt her a scar, so remember your mothers and sisters, boys, and let her sleep under the bars. Our next selection is entitled "Have Another Drink." During this number, the lovely ladies will engage in a bit of a polka game. May I have this, Dawn? Why, sure. Now we bring you one of the most popular acts of the smash hit review, Gay 90s.
presented at Stark General Hospital in the month of May 1945. The Two Marys, singing You Can Easily See.
Oh, you can easily see she's not my mother, 'cause my mother's over 49. And you can easily see she's not my sister, 'cause my sister never showed me such a wonderful time. Oh, you can easily see she's not my sweetheart, 'cause my sweetheart always acts more refined. She's just a slip of a kid who never cared what she did. She's just an intimate friend. I said a very close friend. I mean a personal friend of mine.
The Three Bells singing How Am I Doing?
How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa. How am I doing? Say, say. Gee, oh, baby, oh, sure. Now, I'm not good, but it's understood that what I do, I sure do good. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Gee, oh, baby, oh, sure. How am I doing? Say, say. Gee, oh, baby, oh, sure. Although I'm not the very best in town, I'll be best until the best comes round. Oh, how am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa. How am I doing? Say, say. Gee, oh, baby, oh, sure. Although I'm covered from my head to my toes, you can still see my personality show. How am I doing? Hey, hey. Tweet, 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 twa, twa.
We'll accept all engagements.